little bit of the concept of a single view app.
Cool. So if you guys are ready, I'll tell everybody else back there to quiet down, and we'll get things started. And I'm gonna go eat and listen. Cool.
Should we start?
Yep.
Okay. So I'm Ravel. I do a little bit of every kind of development, but I focus on mobile, iOS mainly. Actually, about 80% of my work being iOS in the last couple of years. And I always try to, I like to try to do stuff whenever there's a new iOS. They always found some cool stuff that you can use, new APIs. So I always play with them to see what you can use on the new apps. So one of the really cool things that I like on the iOS 7 is Parallax. It's actually UIMotion effect, they call, which is an API that Apple created, which makes it really easy for you to use the gyroscope or gyroscope, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, gyroscope on the device to kind of do like a motion in the background or actually anything that you want in your app. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, and also going to talk about single view apps, which is kind of like a new concept that I've been seeing lately on a lot of mobile apps. It's similar to like the single page website a lot of companies have been doing lately, where you just kind of, everything is like one page, you just scroll and there's like some parallax, some crazy cool looking background stuff going on. Next slide. Okay, so parallax, if for those who don't know, parallax is pretty much is a displacement or difference in the apparent position of an object view along two different lines. So, I mean, for to do like a parallax effect, let's say if you're moving this way, like the stuff would move kind of like a different speed. So you kind of get like this cool effect. And with the new flat design that everybody's pretty much moving, nobody's staying with the old UI, everybody's moving to the flat design. Parallax looks really good with that. And I mean, the main example is actually the iPhone home screen. It's kind of weird to demonstrate parallax on a presentation because I can't run on a simulator. There's no way to do this on a simulator. But everybody should know what I'm talking about, where you do this and your background kind of moves as you do it, as if your point of view is moving. So translating is just pretty much moving two different objects with different z-index at different speeds. So I don't know if you guys have already had a chance to play with that, but how Apple makes it available for you is super easy. It's literally 4 lines of code and you can have that effect on your app. And that's why I wanted to talk about that, because it's just make any app like just stand out much more with that effect. And it's literally 4 lines, you can get that done in 2 minutes. So what they do is they created the UIMotion effect class. It's supposed to be work at an abstract superclass. So actually you don't really instantiate UIMotion effect class. You should subclass it and create your own, or use one of them that Apple makes it available for you. UIMotion lets you implement a method that performs animation when the device is tilted horizontally or vertically. So pretty much when you do this or do this, it's kind of just listening for that. You don't have to work directly with the gyroscope, so you don't have to be calculating like how much you turn your device or like that. It just handles for you. It's part of UIKit, which what I mean with that is, if you're working on an iOS app, you don't have to do any extra class importation. It's already available for you. You don't have to import in any new class. And UIMotion effect, the one that Apple, the subclass that Apple provides to you, will cover about 95% of all the cases where you might want to use that effect. So even though they give the class where it's subclass and create our effect, I mean, you probably won't even need to. You're probably going to use the one that Apple provides to you. And that's called UI interpolation motion effect. That's what Apple provides to you. So it's a subclass of UI motion effect. And it's It's what Apple uses on their home screen. And I'm going to show an example of how exactly we do it. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4 things that pretty much you have to provide to that class to do the effect that you want to do provide the parallax effect. Those 4 properties that you have to provide. The value and the property that will be affecting. So when you do this and you see the background moving, the property that you moving is the x or the y index. So when you do that, you're telling, okay, move the x, and when you do that, move the y, and the value is like kind of the offset. So when you do this, you may move 5 pixels to the left, and here 5 pixels to the right of the original value. Minimum value, which is like how much when the gyroscope is turned all the way to the left, and maximum value is how much when you turn all the way to the right. So just to be more specific, we have the, sorry. So they have a value called UI offset. And UI offset is kind of like a CG size, if you guys are familiar with iOS, which is, it's a type def with 2 values. One is supposed to be the X and the other the Y. And pretty much it just tells you how the device is from the viewer. So if I'm looking at this right now, like that, centered, the UI offset is going to be 0, 0, 0. If you do like that, it's going to be -1, 0. If you do it like that, it's going to be -1, 1. And I mean, you guys got it. I guess you got it right. So if you want to, when you do a minimum value of, let's say, 20, you're just saying that when your device is like that, you're going to move your background by 20 pixels negative. And when you do a maximum value of 20 also, you're just telling that when the UI offset is 1 positive, you're doing 20 pixels to the right. So you have to pass the property and that you'll be affecting with the UIMotion, the minimum value, the maximum value, and you have to pass also this enum, which is pretty much saying if that effect should be listening to the vertical axis or to the horizontal axis listener. So if you're doing vertical, you'll be listening to when you do this, and horizontal when you do this. And it's going to make more sense actually, the code. So this is how it takes for you to do the parallax. So I create a UI interpolation motion effect and calling it horizontal effect. You have to create pretty much 2. You have to create one for the vertical and one horizontal. So I'm just creating a UI interpolation motion effect. I'm telling you that the property that I want to affect is the center dot x. So it's going to move the x of the background. And I'm telling it that should be listening to the horizontal axis. So I'm just saying, okay, create a motion effect that whenever I move horizontally, is going to affect the center x of whatever property I give this motion to. And then I'm telling that the minimum relative value is going to be -50, and maximum value is going to be 50. So what I'm saying is that, okay, UI offset is -1. You remove 50 pixels from my original center x value. And when I move all the way to the right, like that for me, I'm adding 50 pixels from the original center x. And then I pretty much just have a background image property, and I'm adding that effect there, and that's it. So that will automatically move 50 pixels to the left if I'm doing this on my phone, or 50 pixels to the right, and that's all it takes. Just one more thing that I actually show some examples that I did, but I'm just gonna talk another thing. It's the UIMotion effect group. So I just said that you have to, this is just gonna take care of the horizontal effect. So if you want to do the parallax that the iPhone has on the home screen, we have to do one for horizontal and one for vertical. So to be able to do that, you have to create a UIMotion effect group, which also subclass UIMotion effect. It pretty much works as a wrapper around multiple other motion effects that you created, and pretty much encapsulate them into one. And you pretty much just have to create, instantiate, and do add motion effect to add out effects. So here's an example. I create an effect group, and I just setting motion effects in an array with my horizontal and vertical, and I add that to the background, just as I did with just one. So instead of you adding the individual effects, you create a group, wrap them around the group, and add the group to the whatever view you want to do the parallax effect. Like I said, UIMotion view is a subclass that's supposed to be subclassed, but the UI forget the name sometimes. The UI interpolation motion effect pretty much takes care of 95% of the case that you need to use that, because most of the time that you're doing the motion effect, you just want to do something, you want to change a value based on horizontal or vertical. So they still give you a nice stub to subclass and create another one. You just need to override one method if you're creating a subclass, which is key paths and relative values for view offset, which they just pretty much giving to you the offset that whenever this value changes, and you do any calculation and returns a key path, a dictionary, which is supposed to be a key path of the property that you modifying, and the value. I'm not gonna go too much in detail because I actually couldn't even think of an instance where it makes sense to subclass it. It just, the UI interpolation motion effect just takes care of everything that I, like, creative side try to do. One thing that I actually thought is maybe what if you wanted to do exponential. So when you move a little bit, instead of moving like just 1 pixel, as you move, it kind of just makes a movement exponential. That's one of the only things that I thought that might make sense to subclass and modify the value that's returned with the UIMotion. But even though if doing that, I couldn't figure out something that would make sense doing that. We just could do it. Another thing that I'm gonna talk, and that's something that I actually can demonstrate on simulator. Actually, I've been doing this, and it's been doing Parallax, but it's hard to show because it's small, and I can do that on my computer. It's not gonna do the UIMotion. But single view app, I think everybody's familiar with the single page app. I know a couple companies that do that. The Verismo website, they have that where you just keep scrolling. There's plenty of websites that they've been doing that, and I've been seeing the same thing in some apps in iOS and Android, where it's just like you pretty much put a lot of content in one view and you just scroll through that. And why I'm showing that with this presentation, because it just makes so much sense with Parallax. Because when you move like that, you can actually make the background move at a little bit different speed, and it gives a really cool effect. Some apps that I could give an example is Twitter Music. I don't know if anyone knows Twitter Music. If not,
They make music?
What? What?
Twitter's got music?
Yeah,
Twitter
they
Music.
tweets.
They have an app for that. I never use it. Just
Very
download
short
it.
song.
The UI is cool.
Right.
And Yahoo Weather. I don't know if anyone has that. I guess not. True. Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah. So I mean, I don't know if you mind kind of showing.
No.
So if you scroll, it kind of works a little bit different. Yeah, there you go. So see, they have all the content in one view, and you just keep scrolling, and you just show everything in one view. You don't have to be like navigating through a navigation controller. I think it gives a lot of value to the user. I think if you want to go, like if you want to see a lot of content really quick, you don't have to be clicking on a menu item and then back and menu item back. You just kind of scroll really quick and can go straight to where you want and go back. There's no like tapping buttons. It's just much more natural to just scroll and give all the content right away. And like I said, it's a really nice opportunity for you to use the parallax effect because, let me show you this new slide. So imagine that that's how it's showing. So how it's showing on the app at the moment is this, and the background, that's what you can see of the background. And as it starts scrolling, you actually see the background moving at a different speed. So it gives this nice effect that there's like more motion in that. And I actually can give an example of that. So this is a scroll. Actually, wait just a minute. So it's not scrolling. Kind of getting out. Okay, there you go. I had the wrong project open. So this, I did kind of like what the Yahoo weather app was doing. So this is just a giant scroll. It's pretty much, I would say like 3,000 points. So it's 4 times the size of a regular UI view if you're taking full screen of iPhone. And what I did is, as you scroll, you can see the background moves at a certain speed. And I can get a little bit delay with the Apple TV, but that's the fact that I'm talking about. So you see the content moves at a certain speed, and the background over at other one. Another cool technique that I've seen a lot is now with iOS 7 is adding the blur to all of that. So as I'm scrolling, you actually like when the content is showing, you actually add a blur. So the idea, what I've seen our apps do is like we give you just like a little bit of content in the first screen, and then you show all the background, usually like high resolution image, makes the app look really good. And as you want to scroll for more content, you really want the user to focus on the content that you want to display. So then you go ahead and start adding a blur as the main content shows, so you don't distract the user from your main content, and you still have the background doing a cool effect. And you mix that with the parallax and blur, and have this cool effect. So just to kind of explain what I did here. Here I'm not using the UIMotion. It's just a similar concept because of the UIMotion. But what I'm doing is I pretty much have a, like I was showing on my slide, which is I have a background which is a little bit bigger than the bounds of my scroll view. So as I scroll, I kind of calculate how much I moved. So if I move halfway up my scroll view, I move my background 50% up. And that's how I get the parallax effect on the background. How I'm doing the blur, I have two backgrounds. I have one, and then I have one that when everything's on top, I have alpha 0. And as I'm doing the scroll, I'm moving like slow, little by little, the alpha of my top background. So it kind of looks like you're blurring, but actually Apple didn't really made anything available for you to blur on the fly, and that's kind of expensive for the processor. So I'm pretty much just adding a little bit of removing a little bit of alpha as you scroll until you go all the way and just show the blur one on top of the other one. So actually not doing any blurring processing at the moment. And well, I have another example where I'm doing this together with the UIMotion. So it's really cool because I have this blur, I have the parallax effect to the background, and I still have the UIMotion, which makes the app looks really cool. So I can't really demonstrate that because, I mean, I could do this, but nobody will be able to see it. If you guys want to see, I can show. But I also, so here's my contact information if you guys can take note. And I put my GitHub here because all those examples actually made available as like a template to start an app. So you can go on my GitHub page, and you're gonna see the single view app iOS example, and you're gonna have 4 different commits on that Git. Each one is one of the examples that I show. One is just the parallax background. The second commit is gonna be the background with the blur. The third commit is gonna be the scroll with blur and UIMotion. And the last one is going to be just UIMotion. So, you guys feel free to, like, if you want to understand exactly what I did, or you want to use that to bootstrap your app, you can go ahead and just, like, get my code. And when I got my Twitter, I rarely ever tweet, but I like follow a lot of people and see what they're talking, and let me know if you guys want to talk. And that's it. Hope you guys like it. Sweet. I guess I didn't ask if anyone has questions, but I guess.
Yeah, I have one on the background image. I assume you'd have to increase it by 100 in width as well to use the parallax, since you use 50 as the offsets?
No, what I do is, for example, I just do like, for example, if, the iPhone 4 is 568 pixels, right? I don't know if that's answering your question, but I pretty much, whenever I'm designing the app, instead of cutting a 568 pixels background, I added another 50 pixels to the bottom, and it just pretty much scrolled. When I did the UIMotion, I actually didn't do any extra size on the UI image. I pretty much was stretching. Of course, it's always better if you don't have any stretching, keep the quality. But just for example, it is a 320 width image, but you can actually put a 350. And when you're doing the UIMotion, you're setting the minimum value, maximum value. You just put like 15, 15, and you make the background like 30 pixels bigger, and then you're not losing any part.
On the parallax motion, you put that the parallax on the background view. I mean, I always thought that the background view was staying still, and then the icons on the front page were the ones doing the parallax.
Oh, that's a cool thing of the effect.
Is it the other way around?
Totally tricked you, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's totally the other way around. But it's a cool effect because like you kind of don't even notice what's going on. It's just cool. So yeah, actually it's just the background. And you can actually do anything. You can actually do to the icons if you wanted. We can actually make. So what is happening is the background is moving like that.
Mm-hmm.
Something that I was playing with is actually add the parallax to the top items, but making it negative. So instead of they moving like that, when you move that phone like that, you do the opposite. So it look like your phone is kind of like doing this, because the top items is actually moving with the parallax. I don't have an example. I was just playing. I didn't commit anything with that, but it's much like I show here. So here, instead of you adding to the background image that you have on your view, just add 20 odd items. And you can actually reuse that object. You can add that object to as many views as you want. Another cool thing, that there's a lot you can play with it. So you can, for example, put here 0 and 1. And you can actually, instead of center.x, you can actually do alpha. So you can make something that when you move, something shows up or not. Like, there's a lot of good things that you can play. And it's literally just those 4 lines of code. And does everything. Any more questions? If not, cool. Thank you.